Welcome. Make yourself comfortable, won't you? I want to tell you a story.
Hello.
Greetings. Hi. My name is Scott. This is Book Invasion. I'm here talking with the wonderful, the fabulous Mr. Josiah Bancroft. Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm holding up. Quarantine life is fun and strange, but we get some good books and we just get lost and then call it a day.
That's about all you can do. That and lots of crafts. I don't know if your family's big on crafts, but we've been getting pretty creative around here with boxes and such.
Yeah, boxes. That's what my laptop's sitting on right now.
Yeah.
Spent most of the day today building Legos.
Nice.
So that was a good time.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. Like Maddie's not quite at the age of Legos. We're still doing the Duplos, which it's not as thrilling. There's not as many fun parts, but we'll get there.
Yeah. Good times. All right, sir. Let's dig deep into the wonderful brain of Mr. Bancroft in this wonderful land of the Tower of Babel and the wonderful adventures of Mr. Thomas Senlin. So here's what I wrote, and this will be a kind of a mess because it's copied and pasted and from other pieces. So Senlin Ascends was originally self-published in 2013 to a, quote, symphony of crickets, which is your words. And then they're picked up and republished by Orbit in 2017. We all know that story. Good stuff. Self-published fantasy blog off, hosted by the wonderful and the great Mark Lawrence. This was, let's see, here's your bio from somewhere. I think it was from the Orbit page. Josiah was a poet, college instructor, and aspiring comic book artist. When he's not writing, he enjoys playing post-pop music with his band Dirt Dirt. Drawing chalk pictures on his office wall. Cooking pub curry for his wife Sharon. He shares a home with her and their two rabbits, Mabel, Chaplin, and of course your publicist Maddie in Philadelphia. Yeah. So Josiah is the author of the Tower of Babel quadrilogy, starting with Senlin Ascends, which is here, yes. Arm of the Sphinx, the HOD King, wrapping up with the newly announced book 4 titled The Fall of Babel. You can find him giving unironic writerly advice at his blog, booksofbabel.com. You can also hear him on the Crit Faced podcast, a weekly Dungeons & Dragons playthrough podcast featuring 4 other fantasy authors, such as Commander Whitecastle, Phil Tucker, David Benham, and Benedict Patrick. Ta-da!
It's great.
Applause.
That's the highlights.
Yes. So yeah, that was my wonderful intro. So, as I've read, you started writing fantasy books when you were 12 years old with your good friend turned cover artist, Ian Leno. And the first book, The Quest for Morto
Angus, yes.
Got it.
It just rolls right off the tongue.
It's always, the fantasy books always have to have some kind of thing like that.
You can tell, I came up with that name right after I got a Latin dictionary for Christmas. I looked up the word for death, and then I looked up the word for fire, and I'm like, all right, Morto Angus.
Angus, nice. That's great. Let's see. You had initially had a phase of wanting Senlin to be a collection of poems, which was scrapped, but that's where the name Senlin originates from. Is from the Morning Song of Senlin by Conrad Aiken. So was that your trigger of inspiration? Your path to poetry?
In many ways, sort of. There's a couple different ways that I got to the tower. The inspiration for the character of Senlin really came from that Conrad Aiken poem, but the inspiration for the tower itself came from Invisible Cities by Italo Calvino. And so that was kind of a confluence of two different books giving me that sort of spark. But at the time that I was working on the earliest ideas for the tower, I was doing a sort of analysis of all the U.S. poet laureates, of who Conrad Aiken was one. Surprisingly, no one was very interested in that project. I know it sounds scintillating, but after like 6 or 7 of them, I was like, this isn't going anywhere. So I started writing about a tower instead.
Nice. And was the Tower of Babel, was Babel like a thing that you wanted to use those reference to like language and things, or was it just why wasn't it like the Tower of Morto Angus or something, like some other kind of convoluted name?
I flip-flopped on that for a long time when I was like originally working on this, because I knew that like there was going to be a certain amount of baggage that came with calling it the Tower of Babel, but there was just sort of the underlying myth around it that I found kind of irresistible. So I decided to sort of snatch what I liked from the lore and leave the rest. But yeah, I mean, the reason that I wanted to use that is because there is this underlying theme of language and sort of melding of cultures that run through the books. So that I liked that, even though there's a little bit of associations that come with it.
Yeah, great for search engine optimization, keyword searches.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting in each of the ringdoms as he ascends. The language and the culture obviously is different. For those who haven't read the book, the tower is broken up into ringdoms, and each ringdom is its own kind of culture, which is great, because in a single novel you can traverse those multiply and go back and forth, as opposed to just you're not set in such a singular fantasy world where all the beasts and kind of the different things. It's just when you go through the ringdoms, it's like it can almost be each chapter or ringdom could be its own novella, and then you kind of just shove it all into one book. It plays really well.
That's exactly why I did it originally. Like I conceive these things as being sort of discrete. Each part of the book was a discrete work unto itself, with a beginning, middle, and end. Because I get bored as a writer, and I knew if I try to have some sort of monolithic culture, after about 200 pages, I would just lose interest.
Let's see here. So 3 books in. And each book carries kind of a different feeling and setting. So, like SENLIN Ascends is more, for my feeling, is more of a discovery. It's more of a unlikely hero, kind of a coming of age thing, adventure. There's more adventure kind of pieced together. And then like book 2 is more of like a more swashbuckling, things with the airships, and it turns into kind of this piratey kind of thing feeling. It feels a little bit more dirtier, grittier. There's pillaging and explosions, kind of more so than book 1. And then book 3, I felt like that almost went a little bit darker. It's more of like a rescue mission, infiltration kind of spy thing, but then with hearts, I suppose. And there's a lot more discovery in there too. And then I'm eager to see how book 4. So were those books, since I don't know how long ago these were written, but do those sequential, like, do you feel those are accurate? What do you feel like those are, and do those represent maybe where you were at the time of writing and the stuff you were surrounding with?
Yeah, I'm sure that they're reflective of like whatever is going on in my life. I tend to like access a lot of my inspiration comes from what I'm just going through personally, and so it makes sense that they would have sort of a variety of even subgenres to them. And I agree that the second book is much more swashbuckling, and the third book to me is like I wanted to do more courtly, mannerly stuff in the middle, which I know was kind of a risk. And there's a point where my editor was saying like, all these books are very different. And I think some people would prefer if I could just write the same thing again.
Yeah.
And I can't. Like, I think it would be disingenuous and lead to something that would feel like artificial if I tried to. And so the books, like, I just let whatever my current fascination is take over. But I mean, they have been trending darker. I don't know if that's just because,
Yeah,
the sort of atmosphere that we're living in,
yeah,
or something else. But I think that as one gets to know the tower more, the sort of machinations that seem kind of charming on the outside become much more gruesome, and that's just sort of a natural, reflection of that.
yeah. No, it's good that some authors take the same path and they rehash it over and over again because the first one was successful, but and authors that don't, they take a risk, but more likely than not, if the risk pays off, because you're giving the readers something new to discover, which I appreciate more than I books that kind of have more of a linear feel throughout the series. Like, I would like it to grow and new things being discovered, which is always a benefit, I feel.
Well, I'm glad. It's not for everyone, but the people who kind of come along the adventure, I think, will find some things to enjoy and other things that annoy them. I like to say that there's something for everyone to hate. There's something in there that you're not going to enjoy, but I typically move on pretty quick. So if you don't like one part, just hang in there.
Yeah, and even though it's not it's fantasy in a sense, overarching feel of fantasy. Even like, I read mostly sci-fi, but I like the twisted wackiness of things every now and then. I don't, I'm not a huge fantasy fan, but this stuff, it doesn't feel so, I don't know, so cloudy, I suppose, as some fantasies would with their lores and their religious systems and their kingdoms and the second brother of King the Third of the land of yada yada, So.
Yeah, I mean, there's a great tradition of like sort of epic, history-based political fantasy, and I felt that is an arena that I had no place. That's it's interesting. I know some people really love it, but I'm kind of with you where that sort of makes my eyes glaze over after a while.
Right.
So I grew up reading probably more science fiction than fantasy, and that has continued as I've gotten older, for similar reasons, I think.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. What do we got? So, what is one writer, fiction writer or non-fiction poets, whoever, living or dead, with which you would like to travel the Tower of Babel? And which ringdom would you likely spend the most of your time in or around?
Oh boy, that's a tough one. There's so many writers that I love their books. I always wonder, like, if meeting them would be a mistake.
Yeah, never meet your idols. Yeah.
Yeah, because you can't. After you read so many books by one person, you develop this sense of them that you become very fond of and very confident is the truth. And then you meet them, you're like, oh wow, you're not at all what I was expecting. But I think that I was talking about Italo Calvino before. He's somebody I would like to have had an opportunity to talk to because he's so interesting as an individual. He had fascinations in folklore and in modernity and in sort of social questions, but also then like in technology and the cosmos and sort of this future looking sort of vision of the world, and so he was like this very complex guy, but he also had a sense of humor. He had a sense of like awe. So yeah, he's somebody that I would like to share a glass of wine with in the baths or something. That would be a lot of fun. I wouldn't want to go anywhere else because the baths are at least charming on the surface, as long as you have money. But I think everywhere else is just bats and rats and spiders.
Maybe if you take up some sword of arms, you can fight alongside. I should pick like an author who's good with firearms. Take Hunter S. Thompson with you.
There you go. Yeah, he's packing.
Yeah, I think he would fit in well anywhere in the tower, really.
Yeah, that's good point.
Let's see here. So the Thomas Senlin, obviously, he does a lot of research about the Tower of Babel before he visits the place that he always kind of wanted to go and had read about. So is there a place too that you have ever read about and haven't visited, or is there a place that you've always wanted to go, either for a writerly retreat or just a vacation on your own, and that you might feel is different than what you expect?
I'm such a homebody. Like if somebody said like you can go anywhere in the world, I would say like my office is fine.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is like when I was growing up, I traveled a lot. Like my family, my parents like were always traveling around, and so I spent a lot of time on the road and spent a lot of time kind of discovering different countries and going into different places, and it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it, but also I don't like places or people or things.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm much less of a adventuresome person than even Thomas SENLIN is. I find reading the book completely sufficient. I would like to read about some old ziggurats in ancient Mesopotamia, and then that's all I want. I would like to one day. I've never been to Australia. That would be a lot of fun to travel there because I have friends there, and they tell me it's a really wild and interesting place, and it looks so different. But yeah, I don't know. I should have a bucket list.
Yeah. Might want to write that down, I guess. Yeah.
Maybe I should and then life gets going, and you have a 2-year-old, and I cannot even fathom taking Maddie on a flight. That's any distance.
Yeah.
So I think probably if I go anywhere, it'll be the grocery store. Probably.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. When my oldest was 2, we took him on a flight to New Mexico, just 45 minutes, and he was okay. But then we drove from Arizona, from Phoenix to Legoland in California, in 6 hours in the car, and that was not a good idea. We had like a Kindle Fire or something, so we can do cartoons, and then took a nap. But yeah, road trips are not ideal with toddlers.
No, not at all.
Yeah. All right. So let's see. We'll do a plug for the amazing band Dirt Dirt, which you and your wife are a part of, and the amazing hits that they've produced. If your books, so if these books were turned into songs or music, or if you wanted to create a soundtrack, what band or bands would you want to create them? The album of SENLIN.
That's a good question.
I guess not what SENLIN would listen to, but like what atmosphere would the books.
I've been listening to. It's funny, like I go through like different sort of moments of obsession with music, and so recently I've been listening to a lot of Boards of Canada.
Nice.
These guys, like they do a lot of kind of atmospheric ambient stuff, and so I've had that on repeat for a lot of my recent drafting. And the other thing I've been listening to with Maddie, but she likes it a lot, is Daft Punk.
Nice.
Because again, it's like kind of has diversity, but there's definitely a mood to it.
Yeah.
That just sort of it transcends all the different tracks, and you have this kind of coherent whole.
Nice.
LCD sound system. I just want to hear like the drum machine and a simple bass line going for about 7 minutes.
Yeah. The juice is flowing. Yeah. No, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. I
feel like a remix of Boards of Canada remix with Daft Punk. That would be pretty awesome.
You got a lot of fun, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. And so so you're one of the participants of the Crit Faced podcast, the D&D podcast. So if Mr. Thomas SENLIN were to join your D&D campaign, what type of character would you feel he'd be?
I think he would be immediately expelled. As a useless character.
Well, hold on, guys. Hold on. Let's not do that yet. Let's look on my encyclopedia.
No, I don't know. I mean, right now I'm still learning all the different classes of characters you can have, and so I think it was like just a couple of weeks ago. I'm like, what's a warlock? I should look this up. So I don't. I'm still discovering things. All the ones that I really like are sort of the useless characters. Like that's why I'm the bard, because like this
or an archivist or something.
Yes. The next character I'm going to be is going to be an archivist or it's also like the arcane religious expert, someone like that. So I think that he would probably be similarly assigned to some useless sort of class. That's a good question. Maybe I'll try to make a character for him. See how long that lasts. I think I would feel bad when he eventually and inevitably dies, because he would.
That'd be pretty interesting.
Yeah, like intelligence 20,
Yeah,
agility 2. Yeah.
maybe that's a future novella of the Thomas Unland D&D club.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
Well, somebody like I've had several different people ask, like, have you ever thought about making a campaign, designing a campaign set in the tower? And increasingly the answer is that sounds awesome. I would love
Yeah.
to something like that because I think there's a lot of sort of real estate to work with in the tower. But I have no gift for that sort of design. Like
Yeah.
once you start looking into it and like realizing the sort of depth of detail and forethought and all that sort of, that is like a different kind of storytelling. It's very impressive, frankly.
Yeah, that'd be cool. And it come in a box like a cardboard tower you can build, and like the prints on each levels, and you put your little figures on them. Like here's the Sphinx, and here's the
a little tank of helium, so you can make some airships.
Yeah. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Let's see here. What's well, I don't want to ask that. That'll be I guess a spoiler for the book. The question that I had from someone who had just read *SENLIN ASCENDS* was where did you come up with the idea to make the tower a giant generator, like using the birmies and the fireplaces, as opposed to just being magical lightning or so.
Well, that's kind of like the overarching big storyline. Like there's been people who've asked me several times, like, do you know where you're going with this? Is this going like?
Right.
And the answer is I knew how the whole thing would end when I started, and I think that some people will be satisfied by the reveal and some people will not be. But I think they'll have to agree that obviously this is where I was going all along. There's like foreshadowing in the first book for where we land in the last book, and so one of the third scenes that I wrote for the book was one of the last scenes, so I had a draft of where we're going for a long time. But yeah, that question of, what is the tower, what is its function, is at the heart of the series.
Yeah. Just turn it into like a space shuttle and just boost it out into space and that turns into some crazy sci-fi space opera.
Man, I keep saying to people, like, the next thing I write, I hope it can be like in the ray gun sci-fi genre.
Yeah.
That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah. I would enjoy that a lot. But like really use ray guns, not like anything. There's ray guns. Like they don't use.
I mean, and that's like my favorite kind of science fiction is like definitely the softer. I do enjoy the hard science fiction. I think that can be a lot of fun because I do like studying space. I think like space is very interesting. But the sort of like closer to Star Wars side of science fiction is very dear to my heart.
Yeah, it's just more digestible. It doesn't require like a study guide or notes, because when I take those on and I listen to audiobooks all the time, like that technical stuff, unless I like see it on the like I can't, if I don't see it on the page, I'm like this is cool, all right, awesome. But yeah, most of the sci-fi too, it's like I'm not a hard sci-fi reader. I haven't really started reading only until like 5 years ago, and I haven't picked up any of the classics, like any of the staples, but I don't really have an interest to do that either. And then there's always the gateway books, like, you're not a sci-fi fan if you haven't blah 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 read.
You have to read all the Dune books, all of them.
Yeah. Like I have
even
Dune,
the later ones.
Yeah, I have a copy of Dune on my shelf, and I watched the like TV series once, and I maybe read the first few chapters of it. But I'm like, I can't. Like, there's a glossary in this, or like a thing that explains 50 different levels of their political. Like, I can't. I'm sorry. Just give me an adventure.
That's fair. Yeah, that is totally legitimate. That's fair.
I'm like,
an adventure, like, you have to go pretty deep in Dune before you're like, oh, good, now we're riding on giant sandworms.
Yeah,
you have to really go, to get there. So.
And it's like I don't. Maybe when I like retire and I can sit on the porch and just do something and read it, like maybe I'll be able to digest it. But like now, I don't have time.
Well, I think it's like that makes sense to me too. Having a toddler, like my reading is like completely dropped off. But, I mean, I always liked the science fiction as a kid that didn't make an effort to explain how their concept works in the physical world.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like this is sort of the difference between Star Wars and Star Trek. Star Trek would sometimes say like, oh no, it's this magical thing that's doing this. Whereas Star Wars is like, what do you mean? We're not going to tell you where the gravity comes from. People just walk around. It's no big deal. You know, they don't even address it.
Yes,
And,
yes.
I kind of like that.
Thank you. Like, yeah, thank you. Like, let the other guys take the sci-fi stuff. Like, and there's definitely an audience for that, and we all appreciate them, but I'll pass. So yeah, we expect full details of how the tower power system works in the book 4.
Well, if I don't feel it, then
discourse, yeah. Just make my eyes cross. Okay. What else do we got? Let's see. What would your dream job be if you weren't an author? Besides, besides writing, what other passions you enjoy exploring?
I've made it a kind of a goal in my life just to do the things that I've always found interesting. And so, there was a time where I decided like, I'm going to be a comic book artist. And, I went to art school and almost immediately washed out. But, I still draw to this day and I still have a lot of fun with that. I would love to do something that was like kind of more visuals as a medium. Like I can foresee a future that maybe I do like either a children's book or a basic graphic novel, something like that. That would be a lot of fun. Just to be able to kind of spend more time drawing. I think probably something in the art field. I've always just found really rewarding. But at this stage, the great thing is like I don't feel like I have to prove anything. So. Make a series of Tower of Babel kids books. Illustrated by the author. Yeah, I had one that I was working on for a while, and I kind of put it to the side, but I might have to pull it out again. It was like one of the epigraphs in Arm of the Sphinx alludes to a sort of a manner book for children called the Unlikable Alphabet. And, I've gotten pretty far into writing that. I think that would be a lot of fun to one day, get illustrated. Yeah. That'd be awesome. Yeah, I definitely pick that up for my kids. Let's see here. And what would you think is the most prized book in your own collection? And what book edition or otherwise do you wish that you had owned, or that you wish you had in your collection? That's a good question. One of my favorite books I got like at a library sale in a strip mall 10 years ago. It's by Ovid. It's called The Art of Love. It's this great sort of tongue-in-cheek ancient text, but the thing that's great about it is like it's just the physicality of the book is a lot of fun. It's sort of this threadbare red faded cloth. And the translation, and I can't even figure out who the translation is by because I haven't been able to find it in paperback or anywhere else. It's great. Like it's the perfect mixture of kind of the modern vernacular with sort of the airiness and the sort of idioms of antiquity. So it's a really great little book. And I pull it out, I would say, several times a year and just flip through a couple of pages and read it because I love it so much. I haven't really been able to find out much about it. I would love to have some of the earlier editions of Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland or Alice Through the Looking Glass. I think that's like a book I've bought like 6 or 7 times in different sort of states and different levels of illustration. Often the sort of like earlier ones where like it's this really pretty line work with ink nib. I would like to have a really nice copy of that, but that every once in a while I'll go and look online at an auction. And I'm like, well, I could never like excuse spending this much money on a book. So I can't. But yeah, that'd be a lot of fun. I was like one of those books awesome. Had a big influence on me as a reader and a writer as a kid. So that'd be great. Yeah. Do you have a large library? Would you say, or is yours pretty conservative? It's It's gotten smaller. We've moved so many times, and I tend to be a little. I'm pretty brutal with my library, you know.
Yeah.
So some things don't make the cut, and I just get rid of them after a couple of years. So I would say it's curated. You know, I have 4 or 5 shelves of poetry, which I don't think a lot of people do.
Yeah.
I have like the shelf of literary criticism that I just keep as a trophy because I read it once. You know,
Yikes.
there's like there's different. It's an organized and sort of diverse library that is representative of my sort of different phases and influences, I guess. You know?
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say it's like voluminous. I don't need like a ladder on wheels to get around it. You know?
Yeah. Singing songs and scooting yourself over. Yeah, this behind me is really the only shelf that I have. The rest of my stuff is like on audio and on Kindle, but these ones are like the top shelf are all signed first editions because I'm just kind of the snob like that, and then most of the other ones, like of course the subpress ones, and most of the ones that I have signed are going to stay on the shelf, but the stuff that I haven't read will be on the bottom, and then I'll read it and I'll make a do I want to keep it or should I buy like a signed copy and get rid of this one, spend the extra, because
so you're a curator.
Yeah, because I think I used to do that when I was working in the record store and going to a lot of concerts and stuff. I would always have the signed CD inserts, and I'd had a big wall like in my room in my apartment when I was single, of course, and you hang them on the wall with all of your signed stuff and signed ticket stubs, and I would just hang out after the shows and get signatures and stuff. So it's always been a habit of like if I have enough passion for something, then it's like I gotta get the first edition hardcover signed copy.
See, I have like no like ability to approach a person and say, "Hey, can you sign this for me?" Like that's just mortifying to even consider. The only time in my life I ever asked anyone for an autograph, they said no, and I was like, "Oh God, that was awful! Like, why did I do that?" So I think I was like 17. It was in Dublin, Ireland. It was Michael Stipe.
Oh, wow.
He was like outside of some yarn factory, sitting off by himself, in the middle of like the countryside.
A total Michael Stipe move.
Yeah, and I was like, my friend Ian, who does the covers, like, we got to go there and talk to him. And I said, I don't think I can do this. Like, come on, we can do it. We'll ask for tickets for the Monster Tour. And I said, like, well, I'm certainly not going to do that. But we did, and we went over there, and he was like, no, I won't sign anything for you, but I'll shake your hand. And so we got to shake his hand, I guess, But and that was the last time I asked him for an autograph.
Nice. Nice. Yeah.
What's your technique? You just walk up to him and say, hey, sign this.
Yeah, usually at concerts and stuff, there's always the crowd of people, and then you just kind of sneak in behind like the voluminous female that's there, and then once you sign, you just do one of these and like, here you go, and then they won't even look at you, and you're like, yeah, it's got it. All right, let's get out of here. Or like take a picture or something. It's just, and sometimes there were times where I would hang out, and back when they had street teams and stuff, I would be like, it's the street team. I'd have stickers of theirs, and I'd be, where'd you get these? Oh, I'm on your street team. All right, cool, let's hang out, And it would just be, they would sign some stuff. But yeah, at book shows and stuff, they have a local bookstore here that used to do a yearly like author festival before our Comic-Con in Phoenix, because whatever authors kind of were going to Comic-Con, they would bring them in there for a day, like the day before, and just have a free author event. So that's one time they had Rothfuss, Pierce Brown, John Scalzi, V.E. Schwab. They had Brandon Sanderson one year when I was there, and like Peter Klein's, Charles Sewell, those kind of guys. So they were all going to Comic-Con because they're all the guys, and so I just brought a stack of books, and they just had tables set up, and you kind of go around this, you just talk to them for a second. They really enjoyed it. This was awesome. And they say thanks, and they write some clever quip on the book or something like that. And usually those events were just usually just at events, and then they're there to sign, and you just kind of get in line. But I haven't met anyone outside of like an event like that where I would recognize them in the grocery store and be like, sign this. It would always be in a situation where that's what they're there for. So
that does make sense. I wish I had that talent for like writing clever quips, like in the front of books. Like my thing is that I almost immediately misspell the person's name.
Yeah.
So like even like friends, like if a friend is a book, I'm like, I'm sorry, I started with a G, and I know it doesn't start with a G. So I don't have that talent. I need to just come up with a little cheat sheet of clever things to say that you can write down.
Yeah.
Oh.
They had I think they had somebody come out with a sticky pad, and they would ask you what your name was, and they would stick it kind of on the title page so that when the author opens it up, they can just be like, "Oh, that's how it's spelled." No.
Yeah.
So that
I need that, and it would be helpful if I could just trace the letters because
Yeah.
I always get so nervous. Like
you just write your own name, and then I'll put my scribbles underneath it. Yeah, to whoever.
Can I just do like a fingerprint? Is that okay? Just there you go.
Yeah. Do you get recognized, or do you have a local hangouts or bookstore or local place that you?
You would have to leave the house to get recognized.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I haven't. But even before the quarantine, I don't go out much. So I'll say that's why I have not been recognized. But the truth is, like, nobody knows who most writers are.
Yeah.
And certainly don't know who I am. So that's nice.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about somebody like spotting you in the grocery store buying toilet paper.
Yeah.
Oh, he gets the 3-ply. That kind of. I don't want that. I don't want that life.
Yeah. Right. No, that's cool. Yeah, I think there's a couple local authors in Arizona that I might know are from here, but they don't live anywhere like near me. They're down in the cool kids places. I live on the outskirts, but I think just I wouldn't expect to see them like at a bookstore, and if I did, I probably would just not even approach them and just be like,
"Yeah, what are you gonna say?"
Yeah, hey, what are you buying there? Like writing for dummies? Let me get a picture. And it's like,
yeah.
They would just.
I thought is George Martin out there? Did he used to?
I think so. And maybe. I know my parents live in New Mexico, not far from his movie theater or someplace. Yeah. He like repurposed I don't know if it's a bowling alley or something into his own little movie theater. I haven't been there. I think I'll stop next time I visit my parents, but.
And I'm sure that he just decides what movie he wants to show, and then
that's
it.
Yeah.
If I had infinite money, would I consider doing that? I'm pretty proud of my cinematic tastes. I'd be like, yes, we're all going to watch Metropolis again. Yes. More silent pictures.
Yeah. I had where's my lightning round? Oh, this isn't going to be our tower questions. This is just the. Let's see. Do paperback or hardback?
Hardback.
Encyclopedia or dictionary?
Ooh, thesaurus.
Oh, okay.
No, I have so many opinions about dictionaries. I could talk about dictionaries for a good half hour.
I'll look at
that. Oh yeah.
All right. What's the crux of the issue or the topic?
The best innovation was when you could access the OED online. Like that was a game changer. And I wish I lost my when I was a teacher at college, I had the cred to access it, and now I can't access it. And I think every day I'm gonna just pay a lot of money so I can get the full OED, because I don't want a partial, just I want the entire.
I didn't even know that was a thing. The full versus the the public access limited to?
Last I checked, it was. I checked, and it's sort of heartbreaking to go and knock on a door when you can't get in. So, I still Merriam-Webster is fine, and dictionary.com is okay.
There's a hierarchy to it. I know.
Yeah. You get the free dictionary and the wiki dictionary. Yeah, there's. I love dictionaries. I'm sorry, that was supposed to be a lightning round. Continue.
No, that's fine. Yeah, we can take a discourse. But what is the last book that made you laugh?
Oh, that's a good question. Why am I blanking on any book that I've ever read in my life? Mr. Pie by Mervyn Peake has been making me laugh. It's a great book that was recommended to me a couple of months ago, and I bought and it just sat on my bedside table for a long time. But it's really funny. It's sort of droll and humanistic in its humor, but it's very funny.
Yeah, the dry humor is the best. I feel it's just the the dull, the mundane. Like when I'm watching a movie with the wife or something, and I would just feel myself like chuckling at a pause or something, and she'd be like, "What's so funny?" I was like, "This whole situation is ridiculous." They're like that they're in, and I feel like the best times that I have is when I could just kind of step away from whatever ridiculousness that is going on, and I just chuckle about stuff. Which then she thinks that I'm not taking things seriously or something, but it's just like, yeah, you just gotta take the 30,000-foot view and just be like, what is this right now? What's going on?
I think right now I certainly have more of an appreciation for books with humor. I need to seek more of them out. But I mean, the other thing that's like happened with this quarantine that's sort of weird is my interest in reading fiction has just dropped off. And so I'm reading like style guides now, just because I'm like, I don't want anything that's associated with story or people or the world. I just want to read about commas. You know, it's just a very strange phase.
The strunk and white stuff's good stuff.
I like to read that and get angry.
Yeah. What's the last book that you finished?
I just finished The Elements of Eloquence. I think that was called. That sounds right. By a guy, I'm gonna totally blank on his name because I'm a terrible reader. Yeah, but it's like it's essentially like kind of a primer on rhetorical devices for writers. And somebody recommended this to me a couple of weeks ago, and I mean, it is a delight. It's gonna stay on my shelf for the rest of my life. I think it's great, and I'll remember the guy's name as soon as we hang up.
Nice. Was there ever a book or guide that you had used to write the novel at all, to transition from like poetry writing into novel writing?
I started. Well, no, not really. I don't like writers' guides. I kind of like think that they're cynical cash grabs by people who feel entitled to tell me how to write my story. I've never been a fan. I think that they're pretty reductive, and I think they're kind of like insincere because they tend to like take things that are very organic, at least in my experience, and make them rigid. And so I think that the way that I write changes from day to day and week to week. What worked one time for one chapter doesn't work the next time for the next chapter. Now I used to teach creative writing, and I was more of the type who would say like, let's learn how to read and learn from the things that we read, as opposed to let me tell you how to write. And so, when I was working on SENLIN Ascends, I was reading a lot of like old Victorian adventure novels because I wanted to kind of fashion my tone off of those. And so I was reading, H.G. Wells and Jules Verne and all that sort of stuff. That's sort of where I was at. So that was more of my guide than any, Stephen King sort of, here's how you make a book.
Yeah. Was there a path? How did you get into the being a writing teacher, or working in that workshop? What was your path to get in there? Was it from your studies? Do you have a degree in English and so on?
Yeah, I mean, I studied English in undergrad, and then I got a master's in literature, and I spent most of my college teaching career teaching Comp 101. So I wasn't teaching a lot of creative writing, but when I was working at a community college, I had the opportunity to teach like 4 or 5 semesters of creative writing, and those were my favorite classes I got to teach.
Nice.
Because you can just I could do what I felt like no one had really done for me, which was spend time listening to what the student wants to do with their work and treat them with like earnest respect, as opposed to as a dummy who doesn't know anything about words and stuff. And so it was great to be able to take my students seriously and take their efforts seriously and encourage them and see them kind of develop and grow over the course of the semester. And the great thing about a class like that is you really can see monumental growth just because the person has spent time thinking more about their work and thinking about how they read, not like anything magical I've done, but just having the opportunity and the structure to focus on your art gives you a chance to grow. And so those were rewarding classes.
Nice. Is there a 5 or 10 year plan to get back into teaching like that, or do you plan on just sticking to writing full time?
Yeah,
somewhat.
I think I think my teaching days are behind me. I think I, teaching is one of those things that I did for almost 10 years, and I did it with like all the passion I had, and like, I put everything I had into it. But toward the end, I was getting tired, and I just don't want to
Okay.
be one of those teachers who,
Mm.
rolls into class 15 minutes late,
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
disheveled tie and like, you again, I don't want to be
Yeah.
that guy. So
Yeah.
I got out before I got bad.
Nice. Nice. Yeah. Like I'm tenured. What are you gonna do? Like I
Yeah.
can't. Yeah.
I remember that that's the thing that's so frustrating about college. To get to like to the 300 or the 400 level classes you've been dying to get
Yeah.
through your entire life, and half of them are taught by these octogenarians who are
Yeah.
so checked out. They're just
Yeah.
they show up and like, I want to talk about my Pekingese.
Yeah. Right.
God.
Uh,
Yeah.
uh, yeah. Let's last one. What's a book that you want everyone to read besides SENLIN ASCENDS and
Ah,
Quest for
oh
Mortal Angus?
man, that's yeah. These are good questions. I, I before like I called you, I was like, I should go look at some books on my shelf and
Oh
like
yeah.
think about these things, but I didn't. I didn't do
No.
that. Let's see, a book that everyone should read. Man, I I don't know. I tell you like some of the books that. What's a happy book that we could suggest? What's
Yeah,
something? Yeah,
exactly.
it's like all the books that are my go-tos are like, well, that's bleak. I don't think people should be reading The Plague right now. This is not the time.
Yeah.
You know, let's read some, Sartre. It's I don't know.
Yeah. It's even the stuff. It's tough because it's all the stuff I like is dystopian and like post-apocalyptic, and then
Yeah.
otherwise it's just silly space battles with cracking witty jokes to each other. It doesn't have any like humanistic value. It's just a thing, It's
Well, I think
there's not.
yeah.
Yeah.
The book that maybe I would suggest, because I've just recommended it to so many of my own, like when I was teaching my writing students, was 100 Years of Solitude, because that book is strangely uplifting and strangely filled with like humanity. It's sort of, there's a small selection of books that I feel like do a really good job of broadly painting the entire human, kind of experience.
Yeah.
And that was one of them. Like, East of Eden and 100 Years of Solitude are two books that I could recommend to anybody and feel pretty confident they're going to at least get something out of it, even if they hate it. They still get something
Right.
out of it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. All right. And so we just saw. So we finally announced book 4, the final Fall of Babel. And we hadn't seen the cover yet. Is that coming soon?
Probably not. Probably not till next year. We, Ian and I have talked about the cover. He's done some rough sketches of it. I think we have a good idea of what we want to do with it. I'm excited to see it, but it's not, we're not there yet.
Yeah. And what? Yeah, obviously, what can we expect, or what would you feel that is the mood / theme comparatively to the other books is it, or you can just give us some teasers.
Well, people were disappointed about Adam's sort of absence from the third book. He finally gets his due with this book. I think that his adventure is pretty weird.
Nice.
So hopefully people will enjoy that. The dynamic that the characters have developed over the first 3 books, I get to kind of explore a little bit more, and in some cases kind of wrap up. I didn't want to, there's certain character developments that I wanted to have happen in the series, and I've been happy with how they've turned out so far. There's going to be a lot of answers to the questions that people have posed over the years. I think there's going to be some debate about the direction I've taken things. Yeah. But hey, I certainly have given it my all.
No, that's good. It's better to have some controversial things than have it just be giving people what they want. It's like, you'll get more buzz if you don't, and then people start to have discourse about it and discussions and so on. That's kind of the fuel to get people to more intrigue, I suppose.
Yeah, I got like I get a lot of notes from people like talking about the books, and frequently they'll say like, I really like the books, but if you don't let Maria and Tom get back together, then it's going like I am done with it. And someone like, no, it has to be Edith, and like it's somebody's gonna be unhappy.
And has the have you felt that I don't know, since now you have a 2-year-old, has that changed your perspective, your writing style, or do you want to make things like not as bleak and not like harm to children's type of, like, none of that? I was, not that you would go there, but I feel like, was there a shift, do you think? Yes. Do you think your writing perspective or your style has changed now that you're a father?
Yeah, in some ways, but in other ways, no, because I think the thing that I've realized about book 4 is, like, you're not moving these tracks, so there's just no way to change course. And so, like, is it as optimistic a work as I would like to give the world right now? No.
Right.
It's not. Is it completely like nihilistic and fatalistic and horrible? No, it's not. I'm not. I do want to give people a sense of like hope, but it's just it's not as lighthearted as I would want it to be right now. And I've said several times publicly, like, the next thing I write is going to be about dancing dragons or something. It's much more chippy and chippy. So it's just the nature of writing a series. Has my kind of take on the world changed since having Maddie? Yeah, I mean, it has. But I'm not sure exactly how yet. I feel like I've always been a person with an abundance of anxiety and dread, but now we have a new flavor that I'm still kind of
right.
So, I don't know. I will say that in the 4th book there is an infant, and I felt like I had done good research into how to make those scenes feel real.
It's a shift. I mean, I feel like not really on a day-to-day scale, but after, it's more, you're more cognizant of how other people are parenting, compared to your own. Like when at the grocery store at 9 a.m. and there's somebody with something, or 9 p.m. and they have their kids, and I'm like, they should be in bed. What are you doing? Like, it's nighttime. It's past their bedtime. But they're all up and running around.
I don't judge people because I feel like I'm that person. I have made so many parenting mistakes. And I'm grateful that Maddie is as patient as she is with Daddy learning how to do stuff. Being quarantined with a 2-year-old has been a crash course in patience and resilience and crafts. So it's been exciting. It's definitely exciting.
Yeah. Oh, I had seen somewhere that you had hoped to write a novella of the Sphinx and the Sphinx backstory. Is that still on the burner at some point?
Yeah, it is. I think that I have ideas. I could have a lot of fun with it. I think that what I'll probably do after I finish the series is take a break from the Tower and the Babel verse and do something else. But I could see coming back to write that novella at some point. We'll see if So, sort of, yes.
The origin of the Tower, it can be that could probably be stretch that sucker out for another 12 books or something.
If I wanted to milk this, I could, but I what I've learned from writing a series is the only way to learn how to write a series is to write a series. And I think the next thing is going to be a standalone, because my God, mistakes that you make in the first book, you're still paying for in the 4th book. Things you wish you had done differently, you're still having to deal with that. So, it's quite a labor of love. I've been working on it for a decade when I'm done, and yeah, I'll definitely want a break.
Yeah. Is there a technique that is there like a yarn labeled tack board that you have for your storylines and such or so on, or just because you lived it so long, you know?
I have a rat's nest collection of notes that are scattered across both digital and physical formats. If I get hit by a train, nobody's going to be able to piece this together. You know, I think it really is. It is clear in my own head, but it is not clear like in my notes. And sometimes like I'll find a note like 6 months later and be like, oh, that was a good idea. And sometimes I'll find a note 6 months later, like I have no idea what this is in reference to. So
nice.
I would not say I am an organized person generally. So, you know.
Yeah. Well, it's been good. It's good stuff so far. Definitely working.
Thank you.
I enjoy it. I recommend it where I can. It's a book that traverses, you know, the standard genre tropes, so it's good for anybody just looking for anything really, which has worked out. I think most of the people I've told about it enjoyed it, especially on our little BookTube universe. I've tossed out there for recommending and seeing people's responses to it is mostly always positive, which is awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I like to be the. It's not something I like to be snotty about, but it's always good to be the hipster for some things. Like oh, SENLIN ASCENDS, you read that book? Oh yeah, you know what? I read it like so long ago. Check out my interview with the author. Like it's just always.
You still got a little bit of the record store in you, see?
Yeah. It's just something that, and I can go on tirades about like stuff like that. Like, oh yeah, Linkin Park. Oh, I seen him in a basement show down in Dayton, Ohio, back in and so on and so forth. Like, just here, I met the band, and so that's. I mean, it's always fun for me to do that. It's something
I understand. Like, I like to kind of feel that my sort of appreciation of a thing before it takes off culturally is why it took off. Like,
right. Yeah, exactly. Like, well, it was me. Some of the the producers on the TV series probably saw my video and they were like, "Dude, this guy's got it all together. Let's get that. Let's get that." Yeah. But it's always fun. That's why I curate my first edition signs when I can, is just so that I can be like, oh yeah. And then these, I'll have the library and the little inscriptions on them when I pass it down to my kids or grandkids and so on and so forth, so they can be like, look how big of a nerd daddy was. He's got this thing. Like, what are books anymore anyway? Like, he had physical pages. Like, we tap into the VR net and go to the library.
Right.
We
download experiences.
Yeah. And that's, just having, like, I try to stick with hardcovers just for the longevity of it, and I keep my dust jackets wrapped up in the little plastic Mylar things so they don't get torn and broken like a nerd.
Yeah, you got so. Well, I like the other thing about like hardcovers. Not only durable, but they're painful to read, and I like to know that I have suffered. Giant brick for an hour.
Yeah, that's what the author intended. Is just like, you gotta hit it, and then you beat people over the head with it if you run into trouble.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's good stuff. And I'm excited to get to see, like, we on Twitter, we had just shown the artwork for the HOD King, which looks awesome too. And I'm excited to stick that in the collection. Yeah. And I had that on, I wanted to get like the whole Tom Kidd like book, the hardcover like coffee table book of all of his illustrations, because his stuff it's just detailed, but it's also detailed to a point where it's in this whole new world, which is crazy. I love it.
Yeah. His work is incredible. I mean, it's a great privilege to have him working on the books, and personally, the guy is just so nice and approachable. He's been wonderful.
Nice.
It's nice to meet people who are not only like completely talented, but also pleasant.
Yeah, and you could tell that if it was an obligation of him to read the book, then illustrate it, but you could tell like he's read. I would hope that he's read it to the detail where he puts in all the little Easter eggs and so on in the artwork.
Yeah, I was sort of very flattered that he has liked the books as well as he has. That's been really nice.
Yeah, was that did you approach him, or was that something that the Subterranean Press kind of put you two together?
It was all Bill at Subpress. Bill has been like so good about finding like the right people to do the work on the books. So I trust him completely. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'll get those on my shelves. That would be amazing. All right, sir. Well, that's all that I have.
All right.
You got any questions? Any questions for me?
No, I should have prepared a question. I feel like at the end of like an interview, you get the work interview, and they're like, "And you have any questions for us?" And you're like, "Where's the bathroom? I don't know. I didn't prepare anything." Yeah.
No, that's all right. That's totally fine. I was almost expecting the kids to run in the whole time, but they're good. I think they're watching. I think they're watching Trolls World Tour.
Oh, nice.
I didn't know they have. Yeah, they have Ozzy Osbourne as the voice for one of the characters, which I thought was pretty hilarious.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
Huh.
Things I really do.
I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the time. I know your schedule is pretty busy. I'm glad you got a reprieve from the little one that gets to have an adult conversation about things, not doing the baby talk and stuff.
Yeah, it has been refreshing, and now I hear her running around upstairs. So
yeah. All right. I'll let you get back to your duty calls.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Have a good one. Bye.